Like many of us, David Percy was overjoyed at the sight of Armstrong apparently stepping onto the lunar surface in July 1969. David is an award-winning film and television producer, as well as a professional photographer and associate of the Royal Photographic Society.
A representative of mankind may well have gone to the moon in 1969, but our research suggests that images of the Apollo landings are not a true and accurate record of such an event. In our view, the Apollo pictures were faked. Many were also encoded with deliberate mistakes. In the years following the Apollo missions, it became increasingly clear to us that there were also errors in the continuity between the live TV coverage and the still photographs. Many of the images are replete with inconsistencies and anomalies. These anomalies and errors may well have been deliberately introduced by whistleblowers. The view of co-author Mary Bennett and myself is that these whistleblowers were individuals deeply unhappy with the fraud they were perpetrating. They in all likelihood created the errors in the anticipation that one day these mistakes would be discovered and exposed. Now, back in the Apollo days, in order to record the original broadcast material for posterity, it had to be filmed off TV screens during the live enactment of each Apollo mission. Now, following the recently completed transfer of all that film onto videotape, it's now been possible to study this film in its entirety, something, incidentally, that relatively few people have done. And furthermore, there's added irony in the fact that new evidence suggests that the original broadcast material wasn't live at all, but actually consisted of pre-recorded video programming. We've come full circle.
Talk us through an example or two of errors in continuity between the Apollo TV coverage and still photographs of the same event.
A serious continuity error can be found in the last but one mission, Apollo 16 of 1972. Let's take a look at a clear discrepancy in the record. We've dubbed this the jump salute. When the astronaut reaches the peak of his jump, his colleague takes a snap with the Hasselblad stills camera. Let's ignore the reasons as to why such a small jump in the much-reduced 1/6 gravity of the moon, and continue instead with the discontinuities revealed by these images. This is the resulting Hasselblad photograph of that event. The most significant difference between these two images of the same action is that in the still photo there's a triangle of fabric that should be absolutely secure and motionless that has flapped up from the top of the PLIS, the personal life support system, as the astronaut jumps into the air. In the TV freeze frame, we can see this triangular flap is correctly fastened and is therefore not visible. It's not flapped up. If it had done so, it would be very obvious in this rear view, the TV image. You can see the size and detail of the triangular flap from this view of the top of the PLIS. How could this part of the vital life support pack not be correctly fastened in place on a real Apollo situation on the moon? In any event, actions taking place simultaneously, such as TV and stills photography of the same event and the same time, must show the same detail. Both versions cannot be correct. In other words, this piece of TV footage and this still picture cannot possibly have been taken at the same time. This is, in our view, a designer continuity error that cannot have occurred by mistake. The triangular flap would have had to have been intentionally unfastened and hinged upwards and secured in an open position to be visible from the front, as is recorded in the still photograph. Our second example is from Apollo 11 on their way to the moon, when the craft is allegedly 130,000 miles away from the Earth. This anomalous sequence was also found by a fellow TV producer and Apollo researcher, Bart Sibrel. We're all familiar with the way X-ray pictures are clipped up for examination against the light box. Well, what I'm about to show you is a sequence with a large colour transparency of the Earth clipped up against the window. If I put white behind it, you can see that more clearly. And when it's clipped up against the window, it becomes illuminated by the light of the sun behind it.
Okay, Level, we have a picture. We see the Earth right in the center of the screen, over.
The astronauts are assured that F-22 is the correct exposure.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out. And we'll zoom our camera in slowly.
Here is what appears to be the Apollo 11 crew's view of the Earth across the blackness of space.
Roger.
But why would the choice be made to take this all-important first view of Earth from 130,000 miles out by standing well back, away from the window?
Could you describe what you're looking at, over? Roger, you're seeing Earth as we see it on our left-hand window, just a little more than a half Earth.
During the sequence, after the camera has zoomed in, surprisingly, something comes between the camera and the Earth, partly obscuring the view. Obviously, this could not happen if they were shooting directly out of the window.